What's up, guys? It's your girl Rivah. I'm back again with another video. If you're new here, my name is Rivah. I am here to give you guys my feelings, my thoughts, my opinions, and of course my reaction to this video. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And of course, hit that post notification bell. I post a video every single day, but the time varies. But if you hit that bell, it will notify you every single time that I post. So I saw this video actually when I was scrolling through my YouTube feed. And this is an interview done with Faith Jenkins, who, if you don't know who she is the new host of Divorce Court. I think she's been on it for about a year or so, or maybe even a little bit longer than that. And I'm really intrigued on what she's going to say. This is all about her perspective on relationships, what makes them work, what makes them, fall apart. And based off of her experience, on the show, but really as an attorney, I'm interested in what she has to say. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into this video and see how this conversation unfolds.
Amazing. So what was the first thing that you feel like, because, talking about foundation, right? Everything that we're saying right now is building the foundation so that you don't end up in these, horrific situations, because you never marry the person you divorce. And I think about that a lot. And I think about, as you fall in love and everything that you just said, it took you 20 years to figure out all those things and the choices you make in order to build the foundation of a relationship that allows you to then have, hopefully a successful one. So as you started, what to you was the first fundamental step you needed to take in order to have a relationship that you could set up for success?
Loving my life. Because I could not look to someone else to make me happy. If I gave someone else the power to make me happy, then I'm also giving them the power to make me sad. I'm also giving them the power to make me depressed. So owning that power for myself and deciding that being single was not a rest stop in my life. It was time for me to really live. If I had been waiting to meet a partner, if I had been waiting to get married to really live, well, guess what? I would have lived half my life just existing. So that was the first choice I made, to embrace my own happiness, so that when you talk about happily ever after, I'm bringing the happy to that ever after. And hopefully someone else is bringing that happy too. So that was the first thing. And then working on myself as a single person. When you get into a relationship, you bring you into the relationship. So if you know how to communicate effectively as a single person, that's going to reflect in your relationships. If you know how to compromise as a single person, that's going to reflect. If you know how to manage your emotions, your anger, when you're upset, how to respond in an emotionally mature way. If you know all of those things, that's what you're bringing into your relationship. So preparing myself, becoming the right person, so that when I did attract the right person, I would be someone that they wanted to be with as well.
Okay, hold up. First of all, let's go to the first thing that she said about not allowing that person to necessarily control your happiness, because if they control your happiness, they're going to control your sadness. That is one of the main things that I think a lot of people have problems with in relationships, and mainly women, because we're different emotionally than men are, right? We wear emotions basically on our sleeves, right? And hormonally things change within us, so like our emotions kind of fluctuate. This is just a big representation of self-control, right? It's more so because I've heard that people say this over and over again, but as she's saying it to me now, it's like a different revelation, right? Because people say over and over again, like, oh, I'm going to make sure that I make myself happy, and I'm going to make sure that I rely on myself for my happiness, and I don't want to look outside of myself. But when you go into somebody making you angry, somebody making you sad, like, you're literally giving this person the authority to treat you like a puppet, kind of. So a person on the outside who doesn't like you, who doesn't agree with you, can easily just pull a string and get the reaction out of you, because that's what you always put off. Like, you always allow everyone else to control how you act. Maturity, emotional maturity, is going to have you unmoved, right? No matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, no matter if there's conflict, no conflict, you're always going to be at your center, on your square, which is extremely important, because what we see now in the news all the time is people literally like going off the handles, losing it, like based off of somebody controlling literally their emotions. So they look to that person for happiness, for strength, for whatever. And then once they don't have that anymore, they no longer know how to function. Next thing I want to go into really, really quick before we jump back into the video is just she's saying attracting that person. You can literally only attract what you are, to be honest. You know, there's certain things that maybe that person's going to have to work on with you or elevate within you. You're always going to have to be moldable to your spouse. I'm talking to the women again. You know, men in a certain way, but women are, you know, the men being the leader, he's going to have to still mold you a little bit so that you can be perfect for him. But there's some key things like your principles, your standards, like who you are, your genuine heart for people or however, you know, those things have to line up with that person. So you literally have to be everything that you're looking to attract. And not just being it to falsify something to hopefully attract better than yourself. No, like genuinely, authentically elevate yourself so that you can attract an emotionally mature person as well. To want to be with somebody who's emotionally mature, you have to be that within yourself first.
And I love that. And then also you just knowing who you are so you don't adapt. How many people, and you say this in your book, where you meet someone and now you're falling in love and everything that was important to you, all your friends, everything that you did just is like out of the window.
Yes.
And now you have morphed yourself into being the person that other person wants.
Yes, I do talk about that because, you know, when I started dating, I was figuring out what I liked and what I didn't like. And this is the time, though, when you're single and you're learning about yourself, it's the time for you to learn those things that you're willing to compromise on and the things that you aren't. So that when someone amazing and fine and sexy shows up in your life, all of those things don't go out the window. So I said, you know, you can't all of a sudden you meet a lawyer. Now you're watching Suits every night. Reruns of Suits.
It is a good show, though.
It is a good show. And then you meet a preacher. You haven't been to church in 20 years, but now you're front and center every Monday and Wednesday because you're navigating. You're not really being who you are. You're adapting to who you're trying to impress someone with who you think they want you to be. So just being really careful about being grounded in who you are. And it also really helps when you meet someone new because you can recognize early on if they have character traits that you know won't mesh with you, that aren't compatible with you because you already know the things that you really appreciate about a person and the things that you know won't work for you. I said you have 3 choices you can make when you meet someone that you like and you're dating and you want to go to the next level. You can accept them for who they are. You can reject them cleanly, kindly, nicely, or you can try to rebuild them. Rebuilding them is a choice that I see a lot of people make. I used to do that, and it is the worst of the 3. Because when you accept someone for who they are, you say, okay, I can love this person for who they are. Now, we're always growing, changing, improving, learning. Those are the things that you want, right? Because you're on a path and you want someone else to be on that path to always striving to be their best self, even through the peaks and the valleys. And then you accept them for who they are. If you know that there are some core incompatibilities with someone, then you reject them cleanly and kindly. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be angry. You can just recognize that you have a different life perspective than someone else. So when you see these really bad breakups that we talked about earlier, that's really coming from a place where you're not enlightened about your future, because if you really think that the best is still out there for you, why would you be angry when a relationship ends?
So hold on. Before we get too far off of what she said, I don't want to, go a little bit further in the video, then pause it and then talk about something that she said 10 minutes ago. So I just want to address something. I think there's a very thin line between molding to your partner and completely changing the person that you are. When I say thin line, I mean when you're talking to women. Because women will be like, oh no, well, these are my friends from kindergarten. That's my deal breaker. I'm not going to stop being friends with my friends because I get into a relationship. And it's like, but your friends are toxic. Like, your friends don't want to see you grow. They want you to be the one that's always single so that they can have better relationships than you do. They only want you around so that you can be the party friend and hang out with them, so that they can fulfill their needs. But then when they get a spouse, they're going to be like, oh, no, sis, I can't stay with you because I got to go tend to my man. But when you have a man, they expect you to always be there. So I think that there's different levels of the deal breakers. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's a very thin line, and I wish that that was like delved into a little bit deeper, because if you leave these things up to women's own interpretations, they're just gonna be like, everything's gonna be a deal breaker for them. If you really think about it, right? Like, oh no, I want to keep my friends. Oh no, like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I think that we have to acknowledge the level of growth or elevation that people actually go through. Women are very adaptable, right? So if your man is, like she says, strong, fine, the guy of your dreams or whatever, and he is a preacher, you are going to be expected to be there every Monday and Wednesday. You are going to be expected to dive into whatever he's passionate about as well. You are going to be expected to not be at the club with your homegirls anymore and kind of change your lifestyle, because that's what's going to be required of you. Because if you're going to a different level, right? If it's really important for you to be with a certain person, it is going to require a different version of you. It doesn't mean that you're not still fun. It doesn't mean that you're not still who you are, but it's going to require a level of change. If you're not willing to commit to that change, or if you find out that that's just a real conflict within yourself and that's really against who you really are, then I can understand. But for a lot of women, all they need is the right guy, the right leader, in their life, and everything else is secondary. They don't really care that much about the friends. They don't really care about going out, because they're going to be experiencing a level of love and trust that they've never experienced before. I think a lot of women who talk about like my deal breakers is because, to be honest, they never experienced that real level of love that requires that elevation.
Would you be upset when it's ending? You would just be more accepting of it and more at peace about it. And then lastly, rebuilding someone, which is, I say, the worst. I like you, but these are all the things that I need you to change and do different in order for this relationship to work. People do not change because they are being forced to by someone else. They change because it comes from a place within where they want to do something different and they think that it will be an improvement in their own life. So nagging doesn't work. Harassing doesn't work. Giving someone an ultimatum does not work. And those are the things that build resentment in your partner. And sooner or later, they will leave. There will be a separation because you can't build a relationship based on that kind of resentment.
God, they're so powerful. Like, resentment is one of those things, and I've heard you say, like, in relationships, it's really the day-to-day, right? It's how do you act, how do you show up every day with your partner, and are you cohesive? And I really think about that, like how people get to the point where they really, really, truly resent. Like, there's sometimes true freaking hatred in that person's eye, and that's what's going back to something earlier. It's like when you first meet someone, you have the love. But like, oh my God, this person's never going to hurt me. Look how generous, look how kind, look how sweet they are. And then flash forward 5 or 10 years later, and it becomes the person that is the bane of your existence, that is like keeping you awake at night, that is just spilling hatred into your life or your relationship. And so I like going back to like, what is that? I think resentment is such a big part of it. And how many people do you see in those situations where they've said, but you said you were going to do this, or you said you were going to be this person, and now you've changed. And so it's kind of, is that taking ownership? Is that actually, do you see that being useful? Saying, we made an agreement and you're the one that switched. And if so, how would you actually, if you could rewind, what would you change about it?
One thing I want to say though too is that it's hard for people to say like, oh, this person changed, because I don't think that a lot of people we have to love this person exactly for who they are. I think that's so true. But the biggest issue on both sides, man and woman, is a lot of people do not really know who that person really is. A lot of people are in relationships, I don't care if it's 10, 20, 50 years. A lot of people in relationships with people at surface level. So when somebody does something, it's like, oh, well, I can't believe that they would do that. But it's because you really don't know that person on an intimate, deep level. Just because you're with somebody every day, just because you spend a lot of time with them, you might know some of their traits. But a lot of people are in relationships, live together, but they live on their phone. They're in separate rooms. They're still going out with, 2 separate parties of friends. They really don't spend that much time together. They go to work. So I think that a lot of people have a deeper issue because they don't really know the person that they're committing to. So then after the years go by, it's not that this person necessarily changed. It's just that the real person, you just kind of start to pay more and more attention, and then you start to see these traits, but that the person's like, hey, I've always been this way. Like, this is who I've always been. Maybe you just never noticed. But I've never, changed technically myself. So I think that's one of the bigger issues as well in relationships, is that people don't really know each other for real. And I agree. You have to love that person. You have to love exactly who that person is. Like the core of who that person is, you have to first get to know it, and then you have to love that person. And regardless, if you can't love that person enough to say, you know what, I love you so much, and I want my job of being in a relationship with you is I want to make sure that you're happy. And the same with the other person. Like, I love you and I want you to be happy in that collective effort. Not just falling in love with an idea or falling in love with again, that surface level person. Really getting to know who that person is.
An example would be when a couple discusses having children, and they agree that, let's say the couple agrees that they will have kids at some point, and they get married. This is a friend of mine, real life situation that happened. He was married for several years, and his wife decided that even though initially she thought she wanted kids, she changed her mind. And she did not want to have children. They had an open and honest conversation, and they ended up getting a divorce because that was a true level of incompatibility at that point, and it wasn't there in the beginning. And initially they had these discussions. Well, but you said that this is what you wanted, and you changed your mind, and that was the wedge that was being created between them. In the end, I think they handled it in a healthy way in going their separate ways, because they didn't try to destroy each other on the way out, which is what you see far too often. But what you have to do is recognize, because we're humans, we are going to change. Being in a marriage, by definition, changes you the moment you get married, because there's no other relationship that you're going to have. It's not the parent-child relationship, the sibling relationship, that brings you as close as you will be to your significant other than this marriage, than this life partnership. You're talking about the person who will really see you at your weakest, at your most vulnerable moments, all of those things. So by definition, that relationship changes us. Mm-hmm. But then as we go through life and we evolve, there are other things that are going to change. And so you hope when you're making a decision about who you go through this partnership with, the change won't be something that is in opposition to what your core values are. Because that's when it really breaks down, when the change becomes in opposition to your core values, and then you have a different choice to make. So there are two things that are really important. When you realize that it's not working, and you have those open and honest conversations, and then it's second, how you treat each other when you are going in a different direction. Because I always say, and this is so important, how many times have you gone through, or you've witnessed your friends go through relationships, and then they go through a breakup, and someone is being vindictive? They are being spiteful. Now they're full of all of this revenge and all of these things, and they say, wow, I never saw this side to a person. That is a red flag, because what's in them is coming out of them. If those things were not inside of them, when they're under pressure, then it would not come out of them. Mm-hmm. It's just like when you take an orange and I give you an orange and you squeeze it right now, what's going to come out of it? Orange juice. I can put it on the table. I can put it on the floor. I can put it on top of a heater. You squeeze it, one thing is going to come out of it, and that is orange juice. Mm-hmm. So when you're under pressure and you see people under pressure, how they start treating each other, that is reflective of their character, because it is easy to treat people right when things are going well. How do people treat each other when things are not going well? That is the key, and a reflection of someone's true nature.
I agree with that to an extent. I definitely do. You can only see the traits that are in someone, but I think that in life and even in relationships, it's like some things happen to people that you'd be surprised. Like some people really go through some stuff that would break other people, and they, stand firm, or they really try to like get through those situations. So I think that I agree with that, but there's more context to that situation. Like sometimes people go through stuff and it changes themselves. Like it changes who they are. It changes how they deal with things just because of the level of stress or the level of pain that they're going through, or hurt, or whatever it is. So sometimes I think that's different. I think that can vary. But what she was saying about the relationships as a whole, right? And when you get into a relationship and going the long term with somebody and seeing this person for who they really are, I think that's true, because this is a level of vulnerability that you're offering to your spouse that is definitely not previewed the same way. But however, being in these long term relationships, being with somebody for the long haul, it's really a mirror of who you are, right? It's a mirror of the exact person that you are. Again, if this person really knows you, they're going to be able to show you your faults, show you your problems, and show you your pain. And getting out of the relationship so cohesively when you don't agree, and when you're able to have these conversations is great. But I think it's harder for people when they're in these long-term committed relationships, and then it's like, maybe the wife was like, I don't really want to have kids anymore. Maybe she thought that it was going to be a possibility that he was going to say, you know what, I understand, and maybe I don't want them either. But to have that bridge, a lot of women, men, and more so than men, I feel like a lot of women will bend and then have the children and then have this miserable life because they really don't want to sacrifice the relationship. That's one of the bigger issues. It's more mature to have that conversation and just say, okay, this is not going to work. But it's hard when maybe this is like your best friend, maybe this is your spouse, maybe, this is the person that you confide in the most, and you don't really want to risk that relationship. So that leads to deeper issues. One thing I have to disagree with, though, is she said that being married by definition, once basically you sign that marriage contract, it changes the nature of the relationship. I think it shouldn't. My opinion. I think it shouldn't. That's the reason why men don't want to get married now. If you think about it, because they're afraid that once they put that ring on your finger that you're going to become a different person. Because, that's what women do. Oh, you a husband now. You can't go out with your friends because you a husband now. What you think you're doing staying out till 3 or 4 in the morning? Oh, no, you're a husband. Why are you looking at the girl like that? Oh, why are you liking pictures on Instagram? You married now. That's one of the biggest issues. It should not change. If you're getting married to somebody, you should have that peace of mind knowing that you're going to get the same person that you've been with all this time. I think if there's a drastic change in your relationship by being married by definition, I think that there's a problem. I think that means that you were dealing with the representative the whole time until they got that ring, and now they can expose who they really are.
Do you think that that's always like, or do you think it becomes building blocks where people get hurt, they put up barriers, and they get hurt again, they put up more barriers, so over time it becomes, well, I never used to be vindictive, but you've hurt me this time, you hurt me this time, you hurt me this time, I keep going back, and now I have a very different feeling towards it. Like, how do you think that that's preventable?
Yes, because we're all on a journey, and it's our responsibility. Often when we experience hurt and pain in our lives, we can't control where it comes from, and we aren't in charge of the person who hurt us, but we are in charge of our healing. I don't believe that people should stay in relationships where they are repeatedly disrespected and dishonored. It's heartbreaking for me to witness that, actually, because what happens over time is it starts to become normal for them.
Right.
And it starts to become a part of their process and a part of their lives. And then they in turn start to believe that they aren't worthy of the honor and the respect because they're used to being disrespected. So when you're talking about someone over time and that resentment building and those building blocks, it is because of when you stay and that becomes a part of your norm, then you're trying to protect yourself. It's like, how do I protect myself? Then you're building up those walls.
Yeah. Have you seen any relationships like that in divorce court where in your opinion, it has crossed the boundary and it's like now a partner's being malicious to the other person, and you see that it is a norm in their relationship. Have you seen that? And if so, what do you say? Because I'm just trying to think about what are the things or people can identify where they're like, oh yeah, this has been a long dripping effect that I've now accepted. But if I had flashed back 10 years, I never would have accepted it as like in and of itself.
I see it all the time. And I think that a couple of things happen over time. It becomes normalized, so people stay longer, and then they choose history over their happiness.
Oh, tell me about that.
Because they look back at the history of their relationship and to when times were good, and they reflect on that, and then they think that the pain of staying will be less than the pain of leaving. Mm-hmm. And it's just not the case, because once you leave and you're really able to get yourself out of the situation, you're able to work on yourself, that pain will eventually subside, but it can't as long as you remain. So it takes strength and courage and just a real sense of knowing that you want something different and something better for yourself.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, guys. She's just giving me so much to say, okay? She's giving me so much to say, and I don't want to lose it. But to leave the relationship, right? It's always easier for the person who wants to leave. Of course. The person who's had enough, the person who's fed up, the person who, like they're talking about disrespect, who's gotten disrespected over and over again, it's easier for the person who wants to leave, and it's still not easy because of the time, because of all the memories invested, because of the situation. But you see, for the person who wants you to deal with their pain and their trauma, who doesn't want to release you from the relationship, because even though there's so much toxicity and drama, they want to stay with you because you're the only family that they ever known. You're the only person that's ever truly loved them. You're the only person that's ever truly seen them. And they feel like, you're supposed to stay with me. You have to stay with me because of this or because of that. Or the person who doesn't want to release you, of course they're going to be way more comfortable staying in the relationship than leaving, because it's actually the opposite for them. The pain of leaving really drastically outweighs the pain of staying, because even though they're staying and they may not be getting the version of you that's best suited for them or that makes them the happiest in that situation, at least they have the solace that you are coming home every day. They see you, they can communicate with you freely, knowing that it's going to be two different households. They don't know what you're doing in your life. They're not going to be able to call you on the phone. That is a completely different feeling. So I think it's easier, like for the people who do, like how she's talking about now, the people who do want change and who do want to see better. But for the people who don't really want to, again, release you from that relationship, some of the people who want to leave stay longer because they know you can't handle it. So I think that's, again, more context definitely necessary within those situations.
You to be able to walk away. It's a hard truth about life. Sometimes you're going to have to walk away from people that you love, but you got to do it for your own peace, for your own self, True. For your own security and your own future.
True. How do you start to do that then? Because I know that, like we all want things. And so when we want something and we see inclinations or signs, we have the confirmation bias, like, oh my God, see, he does love me, or she loves me. How do we make sure that we're not making decisions based on the confirmation bias? Because like you said, once you're out of it, then you can see, oh, I'm glad I'm out and now I'm doing the healing.
Yes.
But when you're in it, it's hard to see that.
Ask yourself this question. Are the two of you committed to the same commitment? And what is that commitment? Is that commitment treating each other well? Is that commitment learning from your mistakes? Is that commitment bringing a healthy person into the relationship? What are you committed to? Because you can't just say, I'm committed to being in this relationship. It's easy to fall in love, but it takes work to stay there. So what are you committed to? Are you committed to doing the work? If you're with someone who's really not committed to doing the work of what it takes to be in a healthy relationship, then you're not committed to the same commitment.
Where's the confetti? I need to throw some confetti at the screen because that is so true. if you're committed to doing the inner work, making sure that you're the best version of yourself, and that other person is a complete opposite, like, I don't think I need to change. I don't need to do anything. It's like the proof is in the pudding. You know, I love what she just said. I love that.
I love that so much. And actually, now this is perfect time. If you can break down how you approach once you met your husband now, how you started to make sure, because everything you're talking about is so freaking powerful. And not only is it powerful, but you're the living example of these are the things you actually mean, right? So if you could break down when you first met your husband, like you went to therapy before you even got engaged.
Yes.
Like, I love all this because I want to make sure that when people are hearing, like, we don't want to fearmonger people, right? It's like, hey guys, this is the potential death trap that we're all getting ourselves into a relationship. And then how do we prevent it? How do we empower ourselves to have our eyes wide open, to make a decision based on they're the right person, but always also going to your point of, but we all also evolve. Yes. So how am I choosing the right person that I can evolve with? So if you don't mind breaking down how you basically approach this, I think it's so genius.
Well, the reason why I was so motivated to write the book is because I remember going through all those years being single. You know, everyone's journey is different. You've been with your husband a long time, so you have a totally different journey and experience than someone like me who's only been married for 2 years. So we have to embrace our journey and where we're going. I wanted to write this book because getting married after 40 years old and hearing all of these things over the course of the years about, you know, what are the possibilities? What are the chances? Well, when are you going to find love? All of these things. And then I end up meeting the most amazing man, and everything that I wanted, everything that I've been waiting for when I met him, it was all worth it. So I wanted to write the book to say, going through the peaks and the valleys and the lessons and the hurt and the pain and everything I learned from it, in the end, it was all worth it because I met the person who added all of the value and added the things that I wanted to add in my life. And I use the word add for a reason because I knew I was bringing a lot to the table and I wanted someone who was going to add to the happiness I already had. So when I met Kenny.
By the way, y'all, she's married to Kenny Lattimore. Okay? So I just wanted to bring that up. I didn't know that. I literally found that out like on Instagram one time when I was scrolling. I was like, she's married to Kenny Lattimore. So it's interesting. You know, like from let me see. I'm gonna pull up something really quick because I want to make sure I have the exact time. I think it is, like she said, like about 2 years ago that they got married. And it's interesting because he's also been divorced too, because he was married to Shantae Moore. I actually had no idea that him and Shantae Moore were not together. Okay, so they both went through their own transformations to be with each other. But I do have to say that for Faith Jenkins, she's saying like, oh, you know, she was turned 40, she got married, and people were saying the odds that are against her and whatever the case is. Yeah, but she's like an anomaly in this situation because she's willing to do the work. There's not many women who are in their 30s, late 30s or whatever, still doing the work to evolve themselves, to elevate themselves, recognize their faults, take accountabilities for the things that they need to change, rearrange for themselves to be the better person. It's not that women can't get married after 40 just because they don't look good anymore, because that's not always the case. Okay, some people hit 30, 40 and they thrive. Okay, they look better than they've ever looked in their whole life. They have more confidence, more sex appeal, they know their bodies, like all of that. It's more of that stubbornness, that unwillingness to change, unwillingness to be led, unwillingness to bend. So she's a little bit different in that situation because the things that people are saying about people who are over 40 is not invalid. It is very valid because of, when you look at the overall picture, a lot of women as they grow become more stuck in their ways, right? They're not willing to deal with anything. And they gather so much more hurt, pain, because instead of actually doing the work to say, what is it that I need to change? They just keep encountering more and more relationships and then keep getting more and more reasons as to why they don't want to be committed to somebody in the long term. So I just wanted to point that out there too. It's not like people are saying like, oh, women over 40, they're just whack or whatever. No, it's a lot of stubbornness that comes with that. Her being able to look into herself and evolve and change and grow has assisted her in finding a relationship compatible for herself.
We dated for 6 months before we got engaged. I just gone through a breakup the year prior to meeting him. It's easy to talk about, the best is yet to come when you're not going through anything, or dreaming big about the future. But when you're going through a breakup and you're going through that pain and that hurt, I made a decision and I said, I've learned all of these lessons. This is the time that I will apply it to my life, because this is really important now. And so I took out a sheet of paper and I just wrote down what I wanted to see happen in my love life within the next year. I was always really good about doing that in my career, but I'd never really done it in my personal life. So I took out a sheet of paper and I said, within the next year, I'm going to meet my husband. And I wrote about the things that I would be attracted to in him, what kind of person he would be. And I took that sheet of paper and I put it in my nightstand and I looked at it every day. Now, I wasn't out, walking the streets every day looking for and saying, is that him? I wasn't doing that. But I expected that would happen. And the second thing I did is I released that prior relationship. I didn't fight for it. I didn't hang on to it. I decided I will radically accept that this relationship is coming to an end, and there's a reason for it coming to an end. I was in pain. I was hurt about it, but I wasn't going to suffer through it like I did in the past. And I said, I'm going to let this go, and I'm going to open myself up to meet my husband, the love of my life. And 6 months later, I was out taking voice lessons again. I used to sing years ago. And I was thinking, what can I do? What do I like to do? What are just some of the things that I really love doing? And I thought, I want to sing. I want to go out and take some voice lessons again. And so in the midst of doing that, I met with someone who works in music. My husband is a professional singer. I met with someone who works in music. We were just having lunch one day. I was not thinking, this is the day that someone's going to introduce me to the man I marry. I was just doing the things that I loved and going through life. And I met with a music producer, and he said in that moment that he sat down with me, he knew that he wanted to introduce me to Kenny. And when he talks about the story, he said he went home to his wife that day and he said to her, I met someone who I want to introduce to Kenny, but I'm a little hesitant because I don't know her that well, just in a professional setting. But he was really good friends with Kenny, had known him for 15 years. And she said, well, what do you think? What do you feel? And he said, I think they're perfect for each other and they should meet. And so he orchestrated us meeting. And so 6 months after I wrote that note that I was going to meet my husband, I went and had lunch with the man that I would marry a year later.
So many of us.
I'm gonna stop this video right here because I think this interview is really long. I think this is like a good place to break it, especially since I think she's gonna do like an ad for something or something. But this is gonna lead to a different topic of when you write something down and expecting to see it. I don't know if I can even dive into that. You guys might have to catch that on like one of my live streams or something, because there's so many women who talk about like the Sierra prayer and everything that she prayed for and like manifested her husband. There's women who think that, oh yeah, as long as I write everything down and believe it, like it's just going to drop out of the sky for me. Like there's a lot of different takes on this part of the conversation, but I want to just stick to the core, which she revealed in this interview. You have to be willing to commit to evolving, to change, like she said, releasing the past, growth, not letting things wear you down, tear you down, not letting past relationships make you bitter for the future or make you feel like you cannot receive anything or, it's over for you, not holding on to the burdens of the past, just living light, right? With no resentment, no hurt, no pain. Just thank you for everything that you taught me in this relationship. Now I know the things that I need to do or I need not to do again. Or now I need to know, now I see the red flags I should look out for in my next relationship, but I'm not going to let it make me bitter. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. It's allowing yourself to be free enough to accept someone new. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, a lot of women go through that phase after they already have another man's children, right? Which again makes it harder. Okay, let's just be real. It makes it harder in certain situations. A lot of women go through that when they're not, the youngest, hottest thing anymore in life. And now they're willing to change and bend because they realize, oh yeah, I had my pick of the litter before, and now I'm just gonna be with anybody. So it causes like a sense of bitterness on the other side of the spectrum. But when you live light and kind and like, focused, not bitter, not bruised, not walking around like, oh, woe is me and all these men and I'm perfect. When you accept the fact that you have to do growth and work within yourself, then of course you're going to be able to attract better for yourself. I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. So let me know your thoughts. I'm also going to leave the link to the full video in the description box. So if you guys want to check out the entire video, you'll be able to see it. Make sure you guys, again, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that post notification bell. Again, I post a video every day. But if you hit that bell and you select all, it will notify you every single time that I post, whether it's a video, a live stream, whatever it is. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. And I will see you guys in the next video. Love you.